Hello, my name is Troy Maurer, and this is my report for CSET 4850 on DDoS attacks and defense mechanisms. In today's world of information technology, network security is a major concern and focus for the leaders in the industry. They have completed countless amounts of research to improve computer and network security. This continued research is essential because keeping users safe online by protecting data and being reliable have become more important than ever. Technology has advanced so much that users are more vulnerable than ever. This is because there are many ways online hackers try to intercept data or cause unreliability, thus making computer attacks more popular than ever. One of the most powerful attacks on the internet is a distributed denial of service attack. With its evolution, it has become one of the most popular attacks as well. When the first kind of denial of service attacks took place, the hacker was actually highly skilled and there were not many of them. Nowadays, the simplicity and availability to purchase a service to perform the attacks make it so popular and hackers do not even need much knowledge and experience hacking. Modern day DDoS attacks are when a network that is hosting a website or an online service goes offline because it cannot handle the network traffic. This causes the website or service to crash and become inaccessible, which is the goal for most of these attacks. The hackers deploying the DDoS attack could have multiple reasons for wanting to take the service offline, and when the attackers are successful, it raises concern about the protection and reliability of the website or service. With the amount of DDoS attacks growing, there are detection and defense mechanisms to try to prevent the attacks from happening. The purpose of this report is to define and recognize the current types of DDoS attacks and describe some of the popular ways hackers attack the systems, as well as recognize and talk about some of the current defense mechanisms used to mitigate and prevent DDoS attacks. DDoS attacks were originated in the late 1900s and grow more popular as the 2000s pass. The first denial of service attack was in 1974 by a 13-year-old student where he locked out a room of users at the same time. From there, attacks evolved, and in 1999, the first large-scale attack happened. A hacker disabled the whole university's computer network for more than 2 days. It used to take an experienced hacker to perform these attacks, but now, inexperienced hackers are increasing the threat. This is due in part to attack services that can be bought on the dark web. The attacks in general work by flooding the server or service with network traffic in the form of messages, fake packets, or requests for connections. This traffic is so overwhelming that the server or service crashes because it could not handle the amount of traffic. That is the goal of the hackers who are deploying these attacks. They want the victim to be inaccessible. Fortunately, the attacks aren't used to compromise data. Instead, they are used for several reasons ranging from politics to hackers just having fun and experimenting. Some hackers may use them to get money out of a large company, or some may just be hacktivists. Either way, they are a big inconvenience to the company dealing with the attack. There have been so many DDoS attacks as of today, but the biggest attack ever recorded so far was in February of 2018 on GitHub. The bandwidth they saw peaked at 1.35 terabytes per second and sending 126.9 million packets per second. Fortunately, GitHub was only offline for about 20 minutes thanks to the protection service they were using. It detected unusual activity within 10 minutes and triggered a response to mitigate the attack. The attack showed an unfamiliar and unusual way to be more powerful by using memcache traffic to amplify the attack. This goes to show how hackers evolve and find new ways to flood a network. It also shows how the defense mechanisms are set up to catch irregular activity on the network, even if the attack has never been seen before. A typical DDoS attack starts with the attacker exploiting a computer system and making it a DDoS master or handler. The master system then gains control over the other systems that are vulnerable by infecting them with malware or bypassing user authentication. Every system that has been compromised by the attacker is called a bot, zombie, or a slave. The attacker will then create a botnet to control the network of bots and instruct the machines to launch one or more of the many different types of flood attacks on its target. DDoS attacks can be classified into three types: volume-based or network-centric attacks, protocol attacks, and application layer attacks. Volume-based or network-centric attacks are when fake packets flood the victim's bandwidth. Some examples of packet floods are UDP and ICMP, and they are measured in bits per second. Protocol attacks take up actual server resources or communication equipment like firewalls and target the network of transport layer protocols. These attacks are measured in packets per second and include floods of synchronization packets, ping of death, and more. Application layer attacks target the application services or databases. They are made up of innocent requests like GET or POST floods, and then they try to crash the web server. This attack is measured in requests per second. The previous mentioned attacks are the ones that have been used and are known to be used. They also have some defense mechanisms to help prevent these attacks in most cases. Unfortunately, there are attacks that are new and unknown to defenders. These are known as zero-day attacks, and they exploit unknown vulnerabilities. Today, they have become most popular with hackers. While hackers evolve, so does the defense, and it's a never-ending battle. Unfortunately, there is no concrete way to prevent DDoS attacks, but there are ways to make it harder for an attacker to take down the network. When organizations set up the network, they should also be planning for DDoS attacks. DDoS attacks are harder to stop when they are already in process, but there are methods to fortify the network and detect possible attacks. Every attack is different, and not every protection is effective for every type of attack. A DDoS defense should have different monitoring for different kinds of attacks, or a system that can monitor all types of attacks. There are two classifications of defense mechanisms: activity classification and location classification. The activity classification is broken down into four categories: intrusion detection, intrusion prevention, intrusion tolerance, and intrusion response. Location classification is broken down into victim, intermediate, and source. Intrusion detection focuses on the different ways to detect an attack. Intrusion prevention focuses on stopping the attacks and rejects the packets. Intrusion tolerance focuses on minimizing the impact the attack has on the network. And intrusion response focuses on how to respond and handle attacks once they are discovered. To be able to successfully defend against attacks, the first thing that needs to be noted is the baseline. The baseline is the normal or expected amount of inbound and outbound traffic on the network at any given time. There are different types of intrusion systems, but they all still need a baseline to be effective. The most common systems today are intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems. Intrusion detection systems monitor the network traffic for unusual activity and send an alert when unusual activity is found. Although intrusion detection systems are prone to false alarms, establishing the baseline of a network traffic helps the intrusion detection system recognize what normal traffic on a network looks like to help prevent false alarms. Intrusion prevention systems also monitor the network traffic for unusual activity, but instead of just logging and alerting, intrusion prevention systems also respond to the unusual traffic by rejecting the packets. The best defense against any attack is prevention, but since the intrusion protection service can respond without admin involvement, they can also have false alarms. This would deny legitimate traffic and cause other problems. The deployment classification is where the defense mechanism is deployed at. There are three locations: the victim or destination, the intermediate, or the source network. Victim mechanisms work on the victim that the attack had the greatest impact on. This allows the victim to recognize that it is the target of the attack. Intermediate mechanisms are deployed at the intermediate network, and the attack can possibly be traced back to the attacker. Source mechanisms are deployed at the edge of the network to be closest to the source of the attack to prevent the attack before it even enters the system. This also makes it easier tracing back to the attacker. This image shows the different defense mechanism classifications. It also shows the different techniques used by each category in the activity classification. For example, if you look at intrusion prevention, there are other categories and techniques used. Same with intrusion detection, intrusion response, and intrusion tolerance. Along with deploying defense mechanism systems, other precautions can be made to add a small layer of defense from DDoS attacks. These can be things such as upgrading hardware or scaling up bandwidth. Some newer hardware in the market come ready to defend and handle well-known attacks. They also come with newer and more controllable admin settings. If affordable, upgrading network bandwidth to handle more traffic can help mitigate volumetric attacks. This allows the organization to handle large amounts of traffic. While the main goal is always to prevent an attack from happening, sometimes an attack can slip through the cracks. This is due in part to the attacks evolve. When monitoring for attacks, it should cover all areas and extremes. If not, this could leave a big opportunity for hackers to figure out what is not being monitored. For example, a large company once was a victim of an attack that lasted years. This attack intercepted data and sent data very slowly by making the data very small. This was not detected because the impact on the network was so small. While they were most likely ready for an attack that would try to get as much information at once, a larger scale attack, this goes to show that all extremes need to be monitored, even if it's barely pulling any data. As technology advances, so do hackers, and so does security. Users want to be safe online and know that their data is secure. They also want to be able to use a website or a service without connectivity issues, making it be a reliable service. In a perfect world, security would always prevent attacks, but that is just unrealistic. This provides the need for continued research into the fields of security and ways to defend against them. Hackers are never going to stop with as much technology there is today and in the foreseeable future. With DDoS attacks being one of the most popular cyber attacks, security and defense needs to advance and become better.